Hello, everybody. My guest today is Danielle Weinblatt. She's a lover of efficiency, builder of products that improve how organizations hire. She's a Harvard dropout, vegan lover of podcasts and behavioral science, and a classical pianist. Danielle, are you ready to take us to the top?
Sure.
Okay, very good. So now, do you play piano while listening to podcasts or no?
That would be an interesting way to start my day, but typically I do not do that. But interesting fact, the baby grand piano that I grew up playing is actually in the lobby of our office here in New York City.
Oh, how cool. Okay, so let's talk about that. What company are you building and what do you guys do? How do you make money?
Sure. So I built a company called Convey IQ, and we basically automate all of the manual, arduous tasks that recruiters have to do to hire great talent. So any type of communication, screening, scheduling, our technology is able to automate through both AI as well as text messaging, emailing. So it's an efficiency tool for talent acquisition teams.
Very cool. And I want to get more of the backstory, but first, give me a general sense of the space you're playing in. So average customer is going to pay you about what per year to use your technology?
Yeah, so upwards of 50,000 per year.
So enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you always enterprise, or did you kind of follow a typical SaaS model where you're kind of SMB, then mid-market, then upsell into enterprise?
Yeah, I would say that most of the companies that really benefited from using our platform were companies that hired a high volume of applicants. So perhaps unlike the typical SaaS model, we were always mid-market to enterprise versus starting off with SMB.
Interesting. And paint that picture for me. The customer that signs up with you at $50,000 a year, what's their team size today? How many are they going to hire typically?
Yeah, so most of the companies that work with us have 100 or more positions open.
Okay.
Team sizes can vary based on what they prioritize, but we work with companies that are as large as NBC Universal, which has quite a large recruiting team, to companies like Warby Parker that are looking to staff their retail stores all over the nation. So the recruiting sizes can vary on the teams.
Interesting. Okay, Danielle, peel back your history here. When did you launch the company? What year?
So I launched the company officially in 2012, but my story is a little unusual because I met my co-founder actually in Harvard Square. I was about to be a student and he was a developer, and he basically said to me, "You're a hustler, I'm a hacker, let's build a business together." So I ended up...
Wait, hold on. So I spent a lot of time in Harvard Square. I mean, were you guys literally just like walking there, or you're playing ping pong near the architecture building? And like, how did you actually like collide?
That's a great question. So there used to be a bar in Harvard Square called Red Line.
See, now we know. We're getting to the story. Here we go.
And he came up to me and he said, my friend and I have a bet going on. You either go to the education school or the business school. Which one? So
that's a pretty good first line.
So basically, we bonded over the fact that we both had parents that were entrepreneurs. So my mother had started one of the first home healthcare companies in the 90s, and then his father had started a tech company in the 90s as well. So we were talking about our family history, and he's like, "What is your aching problem right now?" And I had been doing a lot of recruiting, particularly for diverse candidates. As you can imagine, being a woman who was in male-dominated fields, they always make you the face of diversity recruitment.
Yeah. Who were you recruiting for, though? Were you like interning at a bigger company and you led recruiting for them, or what?
Yeah, great question. So I actually started off my career in mergers and acquisitions in oil and gas. But I loved my job. And because I loved my job so much, they made me, I guess, the face of trying to hire women to join investment banking. And so I was working in
oil and gas.
Well, in mergers and acquisitions, investment banking in general.
Okay.
So I would go to campuses and try and recruit, pretty much everybody, but predominantly they wanted me to be the face of gender diversity in investment banking. So I learned a lot about the recruiting initiatives, what people cared about, what it meant to interview, how do you handle high volume recruitment. And so we had these huge resume books. and you would flip through them and you really couldn't tell the difference between the people's resumes. And then you would meet them and know in the first few minutes of meeting them that they weren't a right fit.
Yep.
So I initially launched a company called Take the Interview back in 2012, which was all about screening those candidates more efficiently using video technology.
And you were a freshman at the time?
No, I was in my first year of my MBA program. So first year, yeah.
Okay, so you had already done kind of 4-year college, and then you were a first year MBA. You run into this guy at the bar in Harvard Square. He says, "What's your biggest problem?" You say this, and now did you guys just split it like 50-50 or what?
We did split it 50-50.
Really? Impressive. Are you guys married today now?
We are not married, but we're very, very good friends. And so in the initial stages, before we raised capital, so I ended up raising about $1 million of seed capital in between my first and my second year at HBS, dropping out of HBS, and then launching the company in New York. But the first 25,000 of friends and family money that went in was his capital, and then I put in 25,000 of my own money, and that's really what kicked us off.
And how much today? How much raised to date?
So we've raised a little over 18 million in venture capital today.
That's in what? So Series B, Series A?
Yeah. So we just completed our Series B.
Congrats! And so, what was that for? The full 17, or did you do a smaller round before that?
No, we did a smaller round before that. So the total for the Series B was about 12.5 million.
And all equity, or did you pile on kind of some venture debt on the back end?
No, we haven't done any venture debt.
Interesting. Okay, very good. And then okay, so you launched in 20. So you said take the interview or take the exam or the interview. Was that the first iteration of this, or was that an old cap table that company's done and you relaunched?
No, so great question again. So that was the first iteration of this. So I actually have 150 companies that utilize what was Take the Interview. So that was the digital interviewing screening platform. That's how we launched our first foray into the talent acquisition technology industry. And so we were really successful with the digital interviewing platform. But the problem with digital interviewing is that it only solves one specific pain point, and that's being able to be more efficient in screening high volume candidates.
Sure.
So about 2 years ago, when we were thinking about how do you expand the value proposition of what we do, how do you still continue to deliver value to your existing clients, but how do you help them be more efficient across more positions, and how do you attract other organizations to want to work with you to solve their problems? We recognize that there were still a tremendous number of, activities that our recruiters were doing that were incredibly time consuming.
Yeah, by the way, I totally get we just had Colin Day on actually with iCIMS, and there was a big merger there recently with this. So I totally get the problem. You're in a very hot space. There's a lot. I mean, it makes complete sense. I want to get kind of more of the story here. So 22, you get the initial idea. 2012, you start really scaling it. You raise some capital. You guys put in $50,000 of your own money. How many customers have you scaled to today?
Yeah, so we have 150 customers in total.
Okay, can I take 150 times a minimum 50,000 ACV? I mean, you're doing what, $600,000 a month right now, or north of that in run rate?
It's a little less than that, because remember the first product was at a lower ACV. But yeah, I mean, like you're in kind of the range of what we'll be doing this year in terms of run rate revenue. Can
you share what you finished last year at? Was it like 400 a month or 500?
Am I supposed to? I'm supposed to share private company revenue.
Well, no. But the reason I do this is because I'm multiplying numbers you already gave me, and they're not what the actual numbers are. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more direction to clear those up. So that's all. You can give a range. I mean, that's fine. I'm just trying to get a general sense. So it sounds like you want to hit kind of a $7 million, $8 million run rate this year. And I mean, maybe what you finished at like 3-4. Give me a range of what you finished last year at.
Yeah. So last year around 3 million, and then this year we do think we'll end up doing between, call it 5 and 6 million. And
do you anticipate most of that coming from expansion revenue across the base you already have, or new logo ads altogether?
Both. But a lot of the revenue we generated from this new recruitment automation platform was driven by expansion. So So our renewal rates are really strong.
Like
so,
how, are they talking like 130% net revenue retention?
I think this year we could hit around 115, 120% net revenue retention because the value of what we deliver to our existing client base is so much stronger. I think it could be in that range.
But just to be clear, you were north of 100% over the historical 12 months, correct?
We were 100%.
Okay, good. So just to be clear, your churned revenue was more than made up by your expansion revenue.
Yeah, you got it.
That's great. That's great. And you obviously were in a great position in terms of growth to be able to go out and raise what you raised. I'm assuming at a valuation that wasn't any kind of down round. So if you finished last year at kind of the 3, where were you before that? Were you kind of doubling year over year prior to that?
So we were doing around like 50-60% growth year over year in the very beginning. Because remember, digital interviewing is a very specific pain point. So I think if we were the platform that we are today previously, if you ignore the fact that still people are getting accustomed to how you incorporate AI and automation into the process, I do think that we would have been doing 100% growth, but we were historically doing 50 to 60%.
That's still healthy, Danielle. I mean, that's still healthy growth.
Yeah, I think so. We had 1 year that was a little bit slower as we did this pivot, and then now this year we're looking at approximately 70 to 100%.
Yeah, that's good. So to just try and quantify that, I mean, it sounds like 12, 13, 14 months ago, maybe doing around 200 grand-ish a month, which would be about 2.4-ish run rate. You finished out last year at kind of a 3.5 run rate, and you're hoping to really grow that over the next 12 months to call it 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah, if we hit 5 million this year in like total contract value, I'd be really happy.
That's very exciting. Okay, flesh out the team for me. How many folks?
Yeah, so we're about 40, a little over 40 right now, and I have 2 offices.
Okay, New York and where?
New York and Belgrade.
Why Belgrade?
Great question. So the first CTO that we brought on, he had worked with 2 amazing Serbian engineers previously. And so we've always had a hybrid team since the very beginning. So he wanted to hire here in New York, which we do. And then he also wanted to hire in Serbia. And then, fast forward right before we raised our Series A, we had about 8 engineers that were in Serbia. And so I actually flew over to Belgrade to check it out. And, they wanted to get an office. They wanted to work together as a team. So we found an amazing office. And now we've grown that team. I think in that office right now, we have 22 people.
Oh, wow. How cool. How cool. Okay, last question here, just because we're out of time and I want to be respectful of your time as well. How aggressive are you being in terms of customer acquisition costs? So if someone signs up today at 50 grand a month, how much are you willing to spend to get that customer, or 50 grand a year?
I would say we're pretty efficient with our customer acquisition costs. We don't overspend on marketing.
So would you spend the full 50 grand to get a dollar in, a dollar out in terms of ARR?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty healthy SaaS company if you can get a 1-year payback. But I have to run the numbers. I would not say we're at 50,000 CAC right now. I would say we're below a 50,000 CAC.
So less than a 12-month payback right now.
Yeah, I mean, assuming, again, it's a new product. So we just launched it last year. We did really well, particularly with existing clients. So it's still, your LTV is something you figure out over time. You have to iterate to figure out exactly what that will be. But I would suspect that we'll probably get to a 1-year payback, if not less.
That's great. All right, Danielle, let's wrap up with the famous 5 rapid fire here. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
That's a great question. I don't know.
What's the last one you read? Do you remember?
Well, I'm reading right now Sales Acceleration Formula by Mark Roberge.
That's a good one.
I love Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I mean, there's just a tremendous number of books that I read. Tools with Titans. I love it. Tim Ferriss. That's on my nightstand right now. I just can't pick a favorite.
That's okay. We'll do Sales Acceleration for now since it's what you're reading. Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Well, I was just actually trying to get an introduction to Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot. I'd love to meet him because I think there's a lot of analogies between what we're doing for recruiting and what HubSpot did for sales and marketing.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the company?
Slack.
So yeah, obvious. That's a good one. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
6.
And what's your situation, Danielle? Married, single, kiddos?
Single, but very happily, I guess.
In a relationship.
Yes, in a relationship.
Okay, good. So no kiddos. And do you mind me asking about how old you are?
I'm 35.
35. Very good. Last question. Take us back 15 years. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
Oh, take more risks. I think I lived a pretty cookie cutter life up until I hit 26, 27 and decided to start this company. I wish I knew that everything would work out the way it was meant to work out in my early 20s and to stop worrying so much about what other people thought about me or what I should be doing. I think following your true north or your authentic self is the best way to live your life.
Guys, Convey IQ, founded back in 2012, a year ago, doing $200,000 a month in revenue, now up to call it $350,000 a month in revenue as they expand, helping 150 enterprise clients recruit more effectively and more efficiently. They're now signing people up at $50,000 ACVs. They're typically companies with more than 100 positions open, like NBC, Universal, etc. They just raised additional capital, $18 million in the company to date, obviously burning to drive growth. Team of 40 in New York City and Belgrade. Net revenue retention north of 100%, and they're honing in their payback period right now, but definitely less than 12 months. Danielle, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thank you. Have a great day.